Last time on the Burger Krieg. This might also be the video that breaks me 100 subs, which... amazing.
I tried so hard and got so far.
I jinxed that one, innit? At least the opening gag for this video practically wrote itself. Also, very many thank yous to the 2 people that did subscribe. I appreciate you. Important leaders of the Western world come to me almost every day and say, "Burger, you have the skin complexion of a bloody vampire, so you were probably around during the Crusades." Now, we've been getting together and we've been thinking, we want a new one of those to happen. And we figure we might ask you for advice on how we would go about doing that. I always answer, well, I wasn't around for all of them, but I do certainly know a thing or two about Crusades. But you have to keep in mind that in the 21st century, you will require a slightly different approach to Deus Vaulting. Then usually I would just elaborate on what one would have to do to get a crusade going, but because of the sheer number of requests coming in these days, I decided that it would be easier to just make this YouTube video and link the presidents, prime ministers and chancellors that ask me for advice there, so, you know, that's what I'm doing right now. What you need to understand is that the Crusades weren't just a 9-off thing. However, you can't just go around reclaiming the Holy Land anymore, because we already gave that away, and I think it's in good, could be better hands with Israel. However, the big nemesis of the Crusades, namely Islam, is still around, and we can make use of that. Right now, the Islamic world is in a perfect spot to encourage some proper crusading. They've been pulled out of their secular golden age of the early to mid-20th century, and now once again vast backwaters filled to the brim with religious ideologues. Thanks, CIA and Saudi Arabia. Now, of course, you can't just declare a crusade anymore, and you can't have the Pope do it for you either. What you have to use is humanitarian means, which may sound a bit odd, but bear with me here for a moment, right? What you do is you choose any war-stricken hellhole in the Middle East, and you invite all the people over that come as refugees from this war-stricken hellhole, right? You invite them into your Western country, and I mean, no decent person would say no to that, because they're poor innocent families who are running away from bullets and death and religious ideologues that you proclaim to hate. But the people you actually want is a massive amount of economic migrants, right? You don't want the refugees. They're just window dressing, so you can package the migrants nicely, all right? What you want is a vast amount of migrants that will slog down your social security systems, and what you want to do is never check their passports, take their word for everything, and spread lies in their home country, or rather allow them to spread lies in their home country, that if they come to Europe, they will live like kings and have to do absolutely nothing about it. Now, you could, in the long term, of course, use the strain that these economic migrants cause on your social security system to get rid of it entirely and give that money to your banker friends instead, but let's not get too deep into that, shall we? What's really important is that with all these economic migrants, they have to believe things which are fundamentally incompatible with what the people that already live in your country believe. This is very important. They have to be savages in comparison, or at least a huge portion of them have to be savages in comparison to the people that already exist in your country. It preferably should be some backwards bullshit, such as women being treated like cattle, paedophilia being kind of okay when the Prophet does it, maybe homosexuals should be thrown off buildings and the infidels should have their heads cut off. Anything that only a person made savage by religious ideology could possibly believe. Now, don't worry, you will get rid of these people eventually, right? But in the meantime, you need to ensure they can fully unfold their barbaric ways in every way possible. Ensure your media does not report on any mass rapes they may do, any people they may rob, honor killings they commit. None of those things should be reported on, and if it is reported on, only maybe by local newspapers. Let your countrymen figure out for themselves what's going on, because they will figure it out, and that is exactly what you want to happen for a good crusade. Make sure they cannot integrate under any circumstances. put them in small, woefully overfilled camps with subpar living conditions, allow them to be radicalized by radical imams, and encourage their backwards ways wherever you can. It's very important that you protect them. Make sure that your people, the people of your country that already inhabit it, realize just how incompatible they are with these other people that you've just imported, but always, always, always take the side of the migrants, whatever they do. Now, just to calm your concerns, you and your wealthy campaign donors will be absolutely safe in your gated communities. No reason to worry, only the peasants will be the ones dying as tensions rise in your country. Just don't visit any cartoonist friends you might have at work, or go to concerts by the Eagles of Death Metal. This leads me to a very important tool in your DIY Crusade kit, which is terrorism. If you import a huge amount of people who adhere to the ideology responsible for 98% of worldwide terrorist attacks, well, you're going to have some terrorism to deal with in your own country, of course. Especially if your own country is the absolute antithesis to what these people believe. Islamic terror attacks will increase so drastically that they will almost be a weekly occurrence. And now, it is very important that the very first thing you do after each attack is disassociate the Muslims and Islam from the attack, and complain, instead of the victims and doing anything about the problems, complain about all the innocent Muslims that will now be targeted by the massive mob of your right-wing Nazi populace that does not exist yet. When the peasants come in to complain about the barbarians you are responsible for importing, do never listen to their concerns ever, and instead brand them as Nazis. It is very important that you ostracize as many decent people who have rational concerns as possible. It's a core part of your plan. Crack down on them hard and say that your draconic measures are because you are such a virtuous individual who only wishes to protect the innocent minorities who, as the kids these days say, didn't do nothing. This, by the way, is a fantastic opportunity to get the censorship and surveillance apparatus you've always wanted. Use people's fear of terrorism to increase surveillance and give yourself more executive powers, and use the reason of combating hate speech to put into place censorship laws with which you can silence people who have political opinions you don't agree with. Make sure to employ these tools to combat primarily people who complain about the migrants. Your goal here is to disenfranchise and ostracize as many people as you can politically, especially average people, so the only leaders they can talk to and who will offer them solutions to the problem they see, but apparently you don't, even though you do, are actual real Nazis. This is the stock you will be growing your modern crusaders from later. Now, among those migrants and refugees and probably the Muslims who have already lived in your country for many years, will be secular reformers. Fantastic people who believe that Islam needs to become more Western, that they need to respect women and give them equality, not throw homosexuals off of buildings and all those things that these people would like to do. You know, the average Western Muslim before you started importing a horde of savages. Many of them probably fled the Islamic world to escape the very people you are now sending after them. It is essential that you demonize these reformers. Maybe brand them right-wing Nazis or anti-Muslim agitators, something to that effect. It is very important that they do not get the opportunity to bridge the gap between your new Muslim arrivals and your potential crusaders and maybe create peace. Because if you have peace in your country, you can forget Deus Vult. Now, the crucial tipping point is when one of your native right-wingers commits an actual terror attack against the Muslims. This is your first crusader, by the way, and what you must do now is the exact opposite of what you do every time the Muslims commit a terror attack. You must link this man to the vast conspiracy of right-wingers, to the right-wing violence that poor innocent Muslims who have never done anything wrong are facing every day, and you must condemn every single one of your filthy peasants and tell them that they are directly responsible for this atrocious attack. That may sound counterintuitive, But you have to remember that you want a crusade, not just a single crusader. You have to keep on pressing to make sure that this one man or woman who did something out of desperation because they think that you will never use government resources to do anything at all can be turned into a right-wing martyr. From here on out, things will probably escalate. The amount of terror attacks will increase on both sides because many of them will be motivated by feelings of revenge, which are a very powerful motivator. And slowly the reins will come off. Now, of course, you need to continue doing what you've been doing all along. Always protect the Muslims. Always shame your peasants. Always make sure that more people get disenfranchised. Increasingly, more and more people will be radicalized by the right wing because they will now have the political monopoly on declaring themselves the saviors of Western culture against the evil aggressor. Right? Especially lower class people will be desperate to join them because not only will their financial situation have changed because of the sudden influx of cheap labor, but also the strain on the social security net is threatening their entire existence. So they have almost nothing left to lose, and do you want rich people to join them? Do you want your fellow aristocrats to join the right wing? I don't think you do. No, leave that to the lowly peasants. As this happens, you must slowly release the pressure you're putting on the right-wingers, and when your next big election comes and you suddenly find yourself surrounded by Nazis, you need to switch gears and go full crusade. Encourage the mobs who are trying to raise Muslim neighborhoods to the ground, even though most of the people in there are just innocent, decent people who would never even consider committing a terrorist attack, and a huge chunk of them would even categorically condemn any terror attacks, and many of them are very grateful to have come to your country and would make absolute model citizens. Many people will die, including the secular Muslims that have lived in your country for generations. They will be some of the first victims, as a matter of fact, even though they've never done anything wrong, because you have managed to turn the inhabitants of your own country into a savage horde of people brainwashed by ideology. Yes, hundreds of thousands will die, but they're just peasants, right? They're lowly peasants, they're not worth anything. If you play your cards right, you will be able to reap massive amounts of power for yourself. And I mean, if we're honest, dead peasants, your personal power gain, I mean the choice should be fairly obvious. When all that business is concluded, you might even be able to go to the Middle East and enjoy the benefits of oil, belly dancers, and slave labor. Congratulations! You've just turned your Western liberal nation into a neo-Nazi dictatorship. Because, after all, isn't betraying every single one of your nation's principles what being a politician is all about? In case you haven't understood anything of what I just told you, fucking stop, you stupid cunts! You're turning the only true liberal democracies in the world into neo-Nazi heaven! What the fuck? I, being a fan of true liberal democracies, have a bit of a problem with that, if you don't mind my complaining. Protect our women! Protect our homosexuals! Protect our secular Muslims, for crying out loud. Go hard against the fucking Muslim extremists and don't pretend they don't exist, because we both know that they do, we can see it, and the only thing you do by claiming that they don't is make us believe that you believe us to be stupid, which we are fucking not. Help the Middle East return to secularism. Defeat Saudi Arabia, even though that is absolutely not in your political interest. It should be in your moral interest, because they are the ones responsible for the vast majority of terror organizations out there. And you know it! Start deporting criminal migrants immediately. Just one offense, you're out, you're sent back home. I don't give a shit if it's a fucking war zone. You're a criminal, you've got nothing to do here. Stop pushing people to the right wing. But share this video around, like it, subscribe to my stuff, because here's the thing, I live in Germany right now, and before I get black bagged and sent to the gulags, I'd like to have a decent profile so that maybe some people remember me, because when the Nazis come to liberate the gulags and then turn them into concentration camps, they'll leave me right there because I don't like fucking Nazis. Wherever you are, have a nice day. Have a great day. Have the best of days. Because let's be honest, if things go as they go now, there's not a lot of nice days left.